In the immortal realm, there is a seemingly ordinary suona, yet it makes all the gods and demons of the heavens tremble in fear.
When the suona sounds, immortal kings are vanquished.
When its tune plays, gods and demons are brought to tears.
And you are the one who played this suona.
With a black dog in one hand and a white banner in the other, your presence spells unrest for heaven and earth.
The world knows you, à Empereur sans ans.
A few days ago, you transmigrated into this world. The original owner of this body had his parents die, his only house was seized by the village tyrant, the Qin family, and he died of pure rage. Now homeless, you've had to build a makeshift shelter on a mountain to live in. Just yesterday, you ran out of food. Starving, you recalled that this body possessed a hereditary skill in playing the suona. Coincidentally, there was a funeral in the village, so you joined the procession band to earn a meal. The drummer, Uncle Dazhuang, was worried you wouldn't be able to keep up. As a result, your rendition of the grand procession nearly sent him to the afterlife himself.
Rythme.
It doesn't exist.
Among 100 instruments, the suona is king.
It's either a trip to heaven or a trip to the wedding hall.
When the suona play, you are the rythme.
The flabbergasted Uncle Dazhuang praised you, saying you had the makings of a great burial master. In the end, they managed to lower the coffin into the grave. While resting, you discovered an ancient scripture had appeared in your mind, the path of the burial master. On its cover was a line of small characters: to bury the heavens, to bury the earth, to bury the myriad realms. Focusing your mind on the scripture, you immediately learned its functions and usage.
First, you start with eternal life.
Second, you get stronger by conducting funerals. Each time you conduct a funeral, you can obtain some of the target's abilities, such as strength, vitality, or even martial arts and cultivation levels. However, it must be for a sapient being, and you must have an official funeral commission to receive the rewards. Immortality doesn't mean you can't be killed. If someone kills you, you'll still die. You and the band played another tune, The Blue Sky, sending the deceased on their way.
Dust to dust, earth to earth, from the yellow springs there is no return.
Funeral successful. Reward, strength +5, life experience +5. Claim? You didn't claim it immediately. You prioritized stability above all else. Who knew what strange phenomena might occur upon claiming the reward? Afterwards, you took your 10 copper coins and bought a dozen caddies of sweet potatoes from the village store, enough to last a week. Carrying the sweet potatoes home, you were in a good mood and whistled a tune.
A half-grown black dog came pattering over from a distance.
Lauemo, I want to eat fish. The little black dog, as if understanding human speech, jumped into a small stream with a splash. When you transmigrated, the original owner of this body died, and only this black dog stayed by your side, never leaving. The path of the burial master had a slot for a burial god beast, which also grants immortality. Without hesitation, you gave this slot to the little black dog, so you wouldn't be too lonely on the long road of eternity. Half an hour later, he emerged from the water with a small 10-finger-long fish. Great, tonight we'll have roasted sweet potatoes and fish stew. After eating, you claimed the funeral reward and felt your strength increase. You could previously lift 50 caddies. Now with your strength increased to 10 points, you could lift 100. In the days that followed, you continuously performed funerals, not only gaining many rewards but also obtaining a manual for 5 elements fist. After 20 years of constant practice, you finally stepped into the realm of a second-grade martial artist. One day, you found Uncle Dazhuang's son Taizhu, and passed on your suona skills to him. The legacy of Peach Blossom Village's procession band could not be broken. On this day, you finished a round of fist practice, feeling refreshed. Your strength as a second-grade gold-breaking realm artist had completely stabilized and was steadily increasing. A corner of your mouth tilted up. The 20-year period is up. The Avenger has returned. Over these years, the Qin family had paid you no mind. After all, what could a suona player do? The Qin brothers had spent their time swindling, cheating, framing others, and seizing land. Lauemo, you shouted. Follow me to get our revenge. We'll break their crutches, split their shadows, and dig up 18 generations of their ancestral graves. The little black dog had grown into a large black dog. Hearing the call for revenge, he bounded out excitedly. Your enemy was his enemy. If he couldn't get them, he'd remember this grudge. Not just for 20 years, but for 200, meticulously recorded in his little notebook. Over the years, you had already scouted out all 18 generations of the Qin family's ancestral graves. You changed into a professional-looking outfit, a white banner slung over your back, a white sash around your waist. You picked up your suona, played a funeral dirge, and marched fiercely to the Qin family's grand residence. At the entrance, a little boy was sitting on a stool, diligently doing his homework. Doing homework? How much have you written? Just 5 more characters to copy, the boy said without looking up. Without a second word, you snatched his workbook and tore it to shreds. The little boy immediately burst into tears.
Grandpa, someon tore my homework.
An old man rushed out, brandishing a cane.
Où the illicite? How dare you cause trouble at my chaîne familier's doorstep?
This was Chen III. In the past 20 years, Chen I and Chen II had already been outlived by you. You glared at him.
Time to cash in your chips, old man.
You struck out with your palm, knocking him to the ground, scattering a few copper coins from his chest. Just then, 2 more old men rushed out. They were the Chen family's 2 first-grade martial artists. As martial artists, their bodies were tougher than ordinary people's, and their movements were quite agile.
Without hesitation, you lunged forward.
White tiger pounces. You leaped up like a fierce tiger pouncing on its prey and struck down with your palm. Chen IV had no time to react and was hit squarely in the chest, stumbling back several steps before falling, unable to get up. Chen V shouted, "Young man, you have no martial virtue."
Scenic attacking US old men in our 60s.
He adopted a firm horse stance and threw a iron horse rushing fist straight at your face.
You were unfazed.
Black tortoise guards the north. You crossed your arms in front of you, like a divine tortoise defending the northern pole, your defense impenetrable. Chen V's punch landed on your arms, and the rebound sent a numbing shock through his own arm. You seized the opportunity, your leg lashing out like a snake, and kicked Chen V to the ground. In an instant, all 3 old men were disabled. You and Lao Mo rampaged through the Chen residence, beating old men and children. Even a passing dog would get slapped twice. You crushed noodles into dust and poured hot water into ant nests.
As you were leaving, you saw a plum tree planted by the door. Rage welled up in your heart.
What right do you have to plant the same kind of plum tree as me? You threw a punch, and with a crack, the wrist-thick plum tree snapped at its base. Only then did you and Lao Mo leave in satisfaction. When the younger members of the Qin family returned home, they found their house looking like it had been robbed. Old men were scattered on the ground, and the 2 first-grade martial artists were completely crippled. Pots and pans were smashed to pieces, and even the potted plants in the courtyard had been doused with hot water, their roots dead. The house's earth chi and vitality had been completely swept away. The young men were furious. They grabbed a neighbor by the chest and roared, "Who did this?" The terrified neighbor stammered, "It was Chongsheng. The one whose house you took. It seems he's heading towards your ancestral graves." The young Qin men immediately gave chase and saw that their family's ancestral graves had been dug up, the coffin lid smashed, and the bones broken into 18 pieces. Just then, you turned a corner and arrived in front of your old house, which had been occupied by Chen III's family. You promptly set it on fire.
The flame roared, consuming the whole house.
"Burn it! Burn it all down, and all debts are settled." You laughed, but 2 lines of tears streamed down your face. "By Chongsheng," you thought, addressing the body's original owner, "the karma between us is now settled. You can rest in peace." You felt a sense of release, your mind clearer than ever, your control over your body reaching a new level. When the young Qin men saw the fire, they rushed to put it out. You were like a tiger among sheep, felling them one by one with your fists. Even Lao Mo lunged back and forth, beating them until they cried for their parents.
A moment later, you walked away without looking back.
The next day, many villagers found something extra at their doorsteps. Some found a land deed for the fields the Qin family had forcibly taken. Others found a string of copper coins that the Qin family had extorted from them. With the Qin family's 2 martial artists defeated and their able-bodied men heavily injured, the villagers they had bullied would certainly not let them off. Of course, none of this had anything to do with you anymore. It was time to leave Peach Blossom Village. You took out your swona and played a farewell tune, then turned to leave. You glanced at the pear tree by your former home. Its blossoms were in full bloom. In a season of falling pear blossoms, a young man departed, stepping on the petals. A man and his dog walked into the morning glow of the mountains, facing the rising sun. You arrived in Jiangqing, a prefectural city in the Li Kingdom. After some searching, you finally found a suitable job. The Chengnan Baixing mortuary was hiring 5 general laborers. The requirements were a strong physique, a bold heart, and a meticulous mind. The notice said they were only hiring 5, but there must have been several hundred applicants. You were stunned. Was the job market in this world so competitive? Hundreds of people fighting for 5 positions? This was too difficult. Soon, a few assistants brought out tables and chairs, setting up a temporary interview station. A portly manager with a round belly sat in the main seat. His sheer size made you wonder if the wooden chair could support him. This was Manager Wu, and passing the interview depended entirely on his nod. "What's your advantage?" he asked the first applicant. A young man in white robes bowed slightly.
My name is Liu.
My advantage is my second uncle. Manager Wu's expression turned serious. Is your second uncle Chen Butao? Manager Wu immediately stood up.
Ah, young Master Liu.
Please, have a seat. You're hired. Someone, bring young Master Liu some tea. The first spot was given away just like that. You stared, dumbfounded. Was this nepotism really so blatant? But looking around, no one dared to complain. Everyone acted as if it was perfectly normal. The next few people were all connections too. Soon, only one spot was left, and another person with connections was about to be nodded through. But the man next to the manager, Taoist Master Lin Jiao, who had been silent the whole time, finally spoke up.
That is enough.
We still need people who can actually work. He cleared his throat. For this last spot, everyone will compete on equal terms. We always do things fairly, openly, and justly. The first to present was a strong man who showed off his muscles, stating his vigorous vitality made him unafraid of een and evil. Manager Wu nodded repeatedly. The second was even more hardcore. He pulled a skull out of nowhere and gave it a kiss, shouting that he was fearless and unafraid of ghosts, perfect for a mortuary. Finally, after a few more people, the assistant called your name. Taoist Master Lin Jiao took the initiative to ask, "Young friend, what are your special talents?" You answered confidently, "I am skilled at playing the suona."
À rendition of The Grand Procession, for everyone here.
You took a deep breath and began to play.
When the suona sounds, all filial piety is in vain.
A single tune breaks the heart. A soulmate is hard to find in this world.
The melancholic sound of the suona silenced the noisy crowd, the sad melody stirring the sorrow in everyone's hearts.
Many in the audience's eyes turned red, whether from memories of their deceased parents or a beautiful maiden who had married another. When the song ended, the field was silent. No one spoke for a long time. Taoist Master Lin Jiao nodded slowly and sighed, sorrowful but not wounding, evoking memories of the distant past. The suona's sound even carries a hint of soul-calming effect. This kid was born for this line of work. You were hired smoothly. On your first day at the mortuary, they had you bury 3 unclaimed corpses by yourself. The others were all there for the sinecure. You were the only one doing real work. But you didn't mind. You went to the mass grave on the back hill, unhurriedly dug 3 pits, and placed the first poor soul inside. It was an emaciated young man, his body as light as a bundle of reeds. He didn't even have a straw mat, let alone a coffin. Nearly every day in Jiangxing, people starved or froze to death. This tune was the last bit of dignity you could offer him. May everyone receive the respect they deserve. The first man's life had been too miserable and unremarkable, so the reward was minimal. But even a mosquito is meat, so you weren't picky. You placed the second body in a pit. This one was even smaller, a child who had starved to the point of emaciation. You played a tune and placed branches and stones as offerings. The reward this time was even more pitiful. With a long sigh, you buried the third. This one was different. At least he was wrapped in a straw mat. He was a young man with a hint of innocence still on his face, his clothes stained with blood. You buried him according to custom, filled the earth, made offerings, and played a tune. After the suona song finished, a notification appeared from the path of the burial master. Funeral successful.
Target, Yangwei. Funeral participation, 65%.
Basic rewards, vitality plus 15, life experience plus 12. Optional rewards, strength plus 12, flying spirit palm, fragment, yellow rank low grade, soul severing blade technique, yellow rank mid grade. From the path of the burial master, you also learned of Yangwei's life story. After reading it, you couldn't help but stand up and bow deeply to Yangwei's grave, saying silently in your heart, "Brother, walk the good road." Only then did you pack up your things and head down the mountain. You started your new life at the mortuary, a happy life of constantly looting. Rewards. But you were still too poor. The people sent to the mortuary were mostly ordinary folk, and the rewards were meager. Although you knew there were cultivators in this world, your golden finger wasn't suited for early contact with them. It was better to wait until you could fight above your level before delving into cultivation. As an immortal, time was the one thing you didn't lack. Stability was key. A week later, an opportunity to make money appeared. The son of Squire Zhang from the East City had died and his body was to be kept at the mortuary before burial. Suddenly, the mortuary became bustling. Originally, there were only 5 people working there. On this day, nearly all 50-plus employees showed up. The mortuary was cleaned from top to bottom, and everyone was busy. You were baffled. Why are there so many people today?
A fellow laboré, Jutong, whispered, "This is inside information, don't spread it."
The Zhang family is keeping the body here, and there are tips for everyone. They are very generous. The managers get 2 taels of silver, the foremen get 1 tael, and us lackeys get 200 copper coins. You immediately understood. So when there was work to be done, no one showed up, but when it was time to collect money, not a single person was missing. Zhu Tong added mysteriously, "And I heard this ceremony needs a procession band, especially a suona player. If they play well, the reward is at least 5 taels of silver." You grabbed Zhu Tong. "Brother Tong, tell me more about this band recruitment." Zhu Tong smiled. "I knew you'd be interested." The Zhang family's son was a martial arts genius, becoming a 3rd-grade martial artist at a young age. But he died suddenly, and his eyes wouldn't even close. Squire Zhang is heartbroken, a grief that's killing him. "What does that have to do with a suona player?" you asked curiously. "Squire Zhang's beloved son is dead, so of course, he wants a grand funeral," Zhu Tong explained. "I heard the Zhang family plans to have a procession band every li from the city gate to the mortuary. Our mortuary needs to provide 1 band as well." Not long after, Taoist Master Lin Jiao gathered everyone. "I'm sure you all know that the Zhang family needs a procession band, and the Suona player is crucial. If you perform well, the Zhang family's reward will not be small. Who is willing to join? Immediately, several people stepped forward to play the gongs and drums. You also stepped out with your Suona. 2 other Suona players joined you. Just then, a snide voice came from behind. Young people these days really don't know their place. How old are you to dare to step up? Everyone turned to look and saw a skinny middle-aged man wearing a skullcap, a Suona tucked into his belt. He was holding a wine jar and reeked of alcohol. Someone in the crowd recognized him. It's Liu Yiqiu. He's here too. The Suona player spot is definitely his.
Liu Yiqiu, et used to be the Ted Suona player at Besheng Mortuary.
His 100 Birds Pay Homage to the Phoenix is a masterpiece. I heard his playing once really did attract a flock of birds to pay homage. Besheng Mortuary was filled with connections, but some of those connections actually had skills. Liu Yiqiu was one of them. Seeing him, the other 2 Suona players immediately withdrew. Master, this job is for you. You were a bit stunned. Was this Liu Yiqiu really that famous? But this funeral was for a 3rd-grade martial artist and came with 5 taels of silver. You weren't going to give up so easily. Besides, when it came to playing the Suona, you had never feared anyone. You stood your ground, not intending to back down. Liu Yiqiu drunkenly staggered up to you.
Kid, are you deaf?
Didn't you hear? This Suona player position is mine, Liu Yiqiu's. You said calmly, since Taoist Master Lin asked everyone to step forward and compete, it's not set in stone. We have to compete to see who is more suitable. Liu Yiqiu laughed.
Kid, you've got gu.
Young people these days are just too arrogant. How many years have you been playing the Suona to dare to compete with me, Liu Yiqiu? The others also started laughing. Haha, this kid is new and doesn't know the ropes.
Kid, don't embarrass yourself. Just back down.
You clenched your teeth.
You won't give up.
At least give me a fair chance to compete. I'll accept it even if I lose. Just then, Foreman Kadu walked in from outside.
Compete?
What's there to compete about? What's your status to demand fairness? The Suona player spot is set for old Liu. He and Liu Yiqiu had both gotten in through connections and were close, so of course, he would favor him. You looked at Kadu, then at Liu Yiqiu. There was already rust on Liu Yiqiu's Suona. You sneered inwardly but said nothing more. No matter.
Yaem en immortal.
Why bother with a single moment's gain? I'll watch them build their towers, watch them feast, and watch their towers crumble. That afternoon, the funeral dirge sounded from the city gate all the way to the mortuary. The funeral procession was several hundred people long, all wearing mourning clothes. 16 strong men carried an expensive Nanmu wood coffin, slowly advancing. Finally, the procession entered the mortuary, and the coffin was placed in the main hall. The mortuary's band was already prepared. Liu Yiqiu proudly began to play his Suona. Indeed, his skill was impressive. The sorrowful notes firmly controlled the rhythm. Kadu nodded repeatedly, extremely pleased. If the Suona was played well and Squire Zhang was satisfied, the reward would naturally be generous. You glanced at the coffin. The lid was open for the final viewing by friends and family. It would be nailed shut before heading up the mountain for burial. The Zhang family's son was indeed handsome and heroic, but his pale face was marred by a pair of wide-open eyes that refused to close. Just then, Squire Zhang and his family entered the mortuary. Squire Zhang was a wealthy man dressed in black silk, crying his eyes out. The mortuary's band played even more vigorously, especially Liu Yiqiu, who shook his head and swayed, completely engrossed. The Suona's sound covered the entire mortuary, audible for 10 li. Squire Zhang's family walked forward, their grief intensifying, their cries growing louder. Suddenly, the Suona sound stopped. Liu Yiqiu coughed violently and then collapsed, weak and breathless. Everyone was stunned. The hall fell silent. Then, realization dawned on the guests and managers, and they were shocked and angry. What happened? The Suona stopped.
This is outrageux.
What is Besheng Mortuary doing? Manager Wu, what's going on? You can't even arrange a proper band. Everyone on the mortuary's side was at a loss. Manager Wu and Taoist Master Lin Jiu's faces turned pale. At this critical moment, Liu Yiqiu had messed up. Kaida's face was ashen.
It's over, it's over.
Squire Zhang is going to be furious. He quickly looked at the squire. Sure enough, Squire Zhang's face was so dark it looked like it could drip water. His wife was wailing loudly.
My son, why is your fate solitaire?
You were doing so well with your martial arts, and then you just died. Even after death, you can't find peace. These cursed people are even ruining your funeral. Hearing this, Squire Zhang's anger boiled over. They dare to ruin my son's funeral. Drag that Suona player out and beat him to death. Immediately, several fierce-looking servants dragged Liu Yiqiu out. Screams came from outside. Kadu hurriedly went up to explain, Squire Zhang, please listen to our explanation. This was an axe-sai. Squire Zhang slapped him across the face. Kada's left cheek immediately swelled up. The The squire glared, his cold eyes sweeping over everyone. You pull this stunt at my son's funeral? You can explain it to the prefect. If you can't even handle a funeral properly, none of you will keep your jobs at Baixing Mortuary. The Zhang family was a major patron. If he complained to the prefect, everyone at the mortuary would be fired. As things were heading towards the worst possible outcome, a thought sparked in your mind. If this continued, your job at the mortuary was at risk. This line of work was too important to you, you couldn't lose it. Thinking of this, you picked up your swona.
A mournful suona mélodie rose, covering the crowd exclamor.
The notes were like a dirge of blood, piercingly sorrowful and desolate. The sound suppressed the guests' anger, stirring the grief in their hearts. The drummers, gong players, and others in the band, as if waking from a dream, quickly followed the swona's rhythm, picking up the funeral tune. The sorrowful music once again echoed through the hall. Manager Wu clutched his chest, nearly scared to death. Thankfully, someone had saved the day. Squire Zhang's anger had not subsided, but he couldn't act out now. He snorted heavily. After my son's funeral is over, I'll settle accounts with you. Just then, a message appeared before your eyes.
Funeral target, Zhang Mingfei. Identity, young master of the Zhang family.
Age, 16. Cultivation, 3rd grade martial artist.
Funeral participation, 5%. Reward, vitality plus 25, life experience plus 151. Optional reward, Yulon Palm, Feyin Tirtin Sword, Linkong Step.
As expected of a scion of a noble family, the list of skills was long and impressive. But for now, the optional rewards were grayed out. You needed 50% participation to choose a reward. Through the path of the burial master, you could see Zhang Mingfei's life and feel his deep unwillingness to die. After one tune, you switched to another, a lament. Whose field is this in Howley? The souls of the dead are without strings, urged on together by ghosts and spirits. Life cannot be delayed even for a moment. Have you not seen how many heroes have turned to dust under the northern hills?
The edges pass like asai.
You infused this artistic conception into the song.
The suona sound carry a sense of ritual, contemplation, and a tranquillity that's out through the edges.
Listening, the crowd's minds drifted. Many worldly troubles that had weighed on them seemed to vanish at that moment. What were heroes and beauties, mountains and rivers, compared to a pot of tea under a peach tree? Even the grief of many guests lessened. When the song ended, the crowd felt a weight lift from their chests. The deceased, Zhang Mingfei, slowly closed his eyes. His eyes closed. Someone sharp-eyed noticed, tugging on the person next to them. The news spread like wildfire. Taoist Master Lin Jiao nodded repeatedly. Xiao Bai's suona playing has reached a level of artistic conception, possessing the miraculous effect of calming the soul and soothing the spirit. Outside, Lu Yixiu lay on the ground, his face bloodied, a few teeth missing. He stared wide-eyed in disbelief.
Divinant.
His music actually has soul-calming divine intent. I've played the suona for 30 years and haven't even touched the edge of divine intent. The most shocked were Squire Zhang and his family. Mrs. Zhang threw herself onto the coffin. My son, you can finally close your eyes. Go in peace. In your next life, don't be so competitive. Squire Zhang let out a long sigh of relief.
Good, good.
My son can go peacefully.
Attendant.
Reward this young suona master with 20 taels of silver. The other musicians get 5. On account of this young master, I'll forgive you all this time. The staff of the mortuary all breathed a sigh of relief. However, you paid no attention to their reactions, completely captivated by a new message on your panel. Family satisfaction has exceeded 50%. An additional reward can be selected. After the funeral, you returned to your room to choose your rewards. Not long after, there was a knock on the door.
Xiao Bai.
Come out, the banquet is starting. It was Zhu Tong's excited voice. You opened the door, and he handed you half a string of copper coins. The funeral's over, and Squire Zhang was very satisfied. Everyone at the mortuary gets a 500 coin tip. You took the coins, marveling at the Zhang family's wealth. You hadn't walked far when a man leaning on a crutch, supported by 2 others, came towards you, glaring fiercely. It was Lu Yixiu. He had nearly ruined the Zhang family's funeral and had been severely beaten by their servants. Kid, Lu Yixiu snarled, did you do something to me during my performance earlier? You smiled faintly.
Liu Yiku, don't to save yourself.
Tell me, how long has it been since you last played the suona?
It's so rusty.
And you haven't been skimping on wine and women lately, have you? How much breath do you have left in your chest? You could see at a glance that Lu Yixiu's body was completely drained.
The suona requiert immense lung capacity and stamina.
In his state, there was no way he could have played through the entire ceremony. Lu Yixiu froze, touching the suona at his waist. Indeed, it was covered in a layer of rust. Its surface reflected his own haggard image. A look of horror crossed his face. I've been so ravaged by wine and women. I'm this worn out? From this day on, I swear to quit gambling and women. That afternoon, your reward finally came. But it was only 5 taels. Squire Zhang had given 20. Manager Wu's handling turned 20 into 10. Foreman Kai's handling turned 10 into 5. Kaidu wasn't worried you'd object. You looked at the 5 taels of silver and fell silent, surprised by Kaidu's greed. But you remained calm on the surface, not throwing a fit. You just silently took out your little black book.
Endure fort un moment, note it in the little black book.
Take a step back, dig up his ancestors' graves. Kaidu's performance would determine the fate of his ancestral tombs. As an immortal, you didn't need to quibble over short-term gains. 5 taels of silver was enough starting capital. Next, you planned to visit the black market. The story continues with the protagonist gaining a martial arts manual from the black market, training, learning talismans from Master Lin Jiao, and opening his own one-stop-shop funeral parlor. He reaches the 8th grade martial artist level. Good times didn't last long. A rebellion broke out outside the city, with evil cultivators aiding the rebel army. But for a burial master like you, the more people died in war, the better. One day, the rebels began to attack the city. The nearby Qingjiang River surged with a massive flood, crashing towards the city. Waves dozens of meters high connected the heavens and the earth. The first wave instantly washed away the outer defenses, smashing houses to pieces and swallowing countless people. Outside the city, a group of black-clothed men watched the flood's rampage coldly. One of them, a small, thin man, marveled, "The divine sex resources are truly profound. To be able to activate a grand formation, shake the earth's veins, and redirect rivers." The roaring river water was guided by a mystical force, once again crashing towards Jiangqing. This wave was dozens of zhang high, like a tsunami, with world-destroying power. The people of Jiangqing were stunned. Against such a monstrous flood, even a high-level martial artist would be helpless. Someone screamed, "Not good. The Qingjiang River has changed its course. The city is going to be flooded. Master, we have to run. Jiangqing is doomed," you shouted. But at that moment your master, ninth uncle, said grimly, "I can feel it. It's the workings of a feng shui grand formation. Someone has activated it, making the earth dragon turn over and guiding the Qingjiang's waters to flood the city. I cannot leave." Ninth uncle, his face full of pain and apology, gently caressed his wife's pregnant belly.
I'm sorry. I broke my promise.
"I'm sorry I can't watch our child grow up." He resolutely pushed his wife away and shouted to the heavens, "Lin Jiao, the 107th generation successor of the Yinfu scripture, requests the aid of the ancestral master's thunder sword. I beseech the ancestral master to lend me his power."
From the sky, a pitchwood sword shot forth, wreathed in lightning.
Strands of electricity poured into ninth uncle's body, causing his aura to skyrocket. His martial cultivation was still only 3rd grade, but his body now contained a terrifying power. Ninth uncle took a step, and a mass of yellow earth chi rose beneath his feet, carrying him towards the city wall. A 3rd grade martial artist was actually flying. "So this is the 10th realm," ninth uncle murmured to himself. "To learn the Tao in the morning and die content in the evening."
Your scalp tingled.
You leaped out to stop him. "Master, this isn't your responsibility. You don't have to force it upon yourself." "This is fate," ninth uncle said. "Sooner or later, it's all the same." He raised his hand and tossed you a yellow book. "Xiao Yu, this is the 2nd volume of the Yinfu scripture.
Do with it as you please.
Take your Shenyang, master's wife, to Qixia mountain north of the city and find refuge. After a while, take her and leave Jiangzhou. I'm afraid the south of the Li kingdom is about to descend into great chaos." Ninth uncle stamped his foot and rose another few dozen zhang, flying rapidly towards the south city. You carried your Shenyang and ran all the way to a cave on Qixia mountain. The next day, as dawn broke, the turmoil in Jiangqing seemed to have subsided.
You carry your Xinyang back home.
The 5th grade grandmaster, Old Master Feng, had emerged with the dragon snake constables to clean up the cursed corpses and the flood's aftermath. Order in the city was temporarily restored. Anxiously, you rushed towards the south of the city. The floodwaters had receded. You searched back and forth but only found a broken half of a peachwood sword. Head Constable Long passed by with a team of constables.
Kid Bay, stop looking. Your master is gone.
I saw it clearly from the city last night. He channeled the earth chi into his body, forcibly changed the landscape of the south city, and blocked the flood. Then he fought with nearby feng shui masters, broke their formation, and was consumed by the backlash of the earth chi. There are no bones left. He sighed heavily. Your master was a true hero.
It's a pity. Good people don't live long. Jiangsheng's best feng shui master, gone. A broken sword in a forgotten mountain, a tattered robe.
Ninth uncle was no more. At ninth uncle's makeshift grave, you played a lament on your swona.
Life is like morning the way, gone in a flash. Once dead, when does one return?
At this moment, you finally understood this song to your very core.
The mournful Siona échoued over the desolate grass and cold ton.
When the song ended, you stood before the grave for a long time, unwilling to leave. All this time, you had chosen self-preservation, only doing small things within your ability. But now, Ninth Uncle's death had made you resolute.
The rebel army must die.
The karma for Ninth Uncle's death must be placed on their heads. Since karma was forged, you would settle it with a long blade in your hand. A few days later, after making preparations, you bowed deeply to your Shenyang and lit a stick of incense before Ninth Uncle's memorial tablet, making a vow. In the ink-black night, a figure carrying a long blade disappeared into the darkness. The protagonist by you infiltrates the rebel army, works his way up, and after several months of conducting funerals and cultivating, he reaches the 9th grade martial artist level. He finds an opportunity during a major battle. With a cold smile, you pulled out a common soldier's uniform from under the bed, put it on, and with a twist of your face, your appearance changed completely. You slipped out of the tent with your blade. Outside, it was chaos. Imperial soldiers had broken through the northern wall, and the rebels were being pushed back, retreating in disarray. Other rebel forces began to flee. You didn't linger, leaping over the southern wall and disappearing into a forest. The most important thing now was to head south and kill the rebels' immortal master Li.
You used your APE Clin the Clouds movement technique, speeding through the forest.
You leaped to the top of a large tree and let out a long whistle. Soon, a black dog carrying a pack emerged from the woods. Woof woof. The infiltration period is over.
We welcome the return of the Dog King.
You jumped down from the tree and hugged Lao Mo tightly. Lao Mo, it's been tough on you. For the past few days, Lao Mo had been circling the forest, following you from a distance, waiting for this chance.
You grasped your 7 fien blade, Airwak feeling welling up inside you.
Let's go. We're going to slay an immortal. Man and dog sped through the jungle, avoiding the main roads. Half a day later, they reached a mountain peak. On the other side was a plain where two great armies were locked in a bloody battle. In the sky, Immortal Master Li, with several silver-armored flying corpses, was fighting against two immortals hired by the prefect. You hid in the forest and handed a book to Lao Mo. Remember this aura. Find him in the nearby woods. This was a book written by Immortal Master Li himself, containing his aura. You deduced that when Immortal Master Li was about to lose, he would use a feng shui substitution art to protect himself. But this art wasn't easy to use. A substitute object had to be chosen in advance, and a feng shui formation set up to gather earth qi. Therefore, Immortal Master Li's aura would surely be left nearby. Woof. Lao Mo nodded and began sniffing through the forest. You also used a talisman and chanted, casting an aura sensing art, to find the place where earth qi converged. With the combination of your art and Lao Mo's nose, you quickly found a large boulder. The earth qi around it was particularly dense, and Lao Mo confirmed the aura was the same as the one on the book. The boulder was covered in cuts and burns, and the wounds were stained with blood. It seemed this boulder had already taken a lot of damage for Immortal Master Li.
Without a word, you drew your long blade and fiercely struck the boulder.
Clang. Sparks flew, but only a shallow white mark was left. You frowned, refusing to believe it. You channeled all your strength and struck the boulder repeatedly, but it was no use. To completely destroy it would take at least a day or two. It seemed the boulder had been temporarily hardened by Immortal Master Li's secret technique. You told Lao Mo to stand guard while you stroked your chin, thinking rapidly. A normal feng shui master substitution art would be easy to break, but Immortal Master Li was a high-level feng shui master and a cultivator. Breaking his art would not be so simple. Just then, the stone began to vibrate, covered in a layer of blood-red light that grew stronger. It seemed the situation on the battlefield had changed, and the Immortal Master was about to transfer here. Gritting your teeth, you took out several blood talismans, and threw them into the air. They ignited without wind, turning into several streams of blood-red light that shot out in all directions, sinking into the nearby earth qi nodes. In an instant, the local earth qi was thrown into chaos. You didn't have time to think, quickly retreating into the forest. Sure enough, a moment later, the boulder exploded with a loud bang.
Stones and dust flew everywhere.
As the dust settled, Immortal Master Li appeared at the center of the explosion. He clutched his chest, spitting blood. Heh. What happened? This substitution art should have worked a few more times. Why did it suddenly explode? The substitution was only half successful, and only half my injuries were transferred. Damn it, I was so close to exhausting that woman's talismans. 1 or 2 more times and I would have won. Immortal Master Li coughed continuously, took out a bottle, and swallowed a foul-smelling blood-colored pill. He finally stabilized his injuries and began to meditate to recover. Just then, he saw a person run out of the woods. 4th young Master Song, why are you here? The person was Song Lin. He ran over urgently, saying, Master, my granduncle sent me to see how you are. Immortal Master Li said irritably, he's worried I can't fight anymore, isn't he? It seems we'll have to retreat for now.
I need to recuperat.
Song Lin added, Granduncle also said that if you were to fall in battle, I should collect your body for burial. Humph, at least you have some conscience, Immortal Master Li snorted. But I'm fine. I'll definitely outlive that old coot Song Bailey. As he was speaking, he suddenly noticed Song Lin had entered within 10 zhong and hadn't stopped. He abruptly realized something was wrong. Wait, you're not the Song family's boy. He hadn't shaved in days. A cold smile appeared on Song Lin's face as he instantly closed the distance. The long blade in his hand swung down, aiming straight for Immortal Master Li's head. This Song Lin was of course you in disguise. You closed in and swung your blade. Immortal Master Li was shocked but not panicked. A turtle shell flew from his hand, instantly transforming into a shield in front of him. Just a post-celestial martial artist, he thought. He wasn't worried. Once he blocked this attack, it would be this fake Song Lin's turn to die. However, the long blade let out a sharp hum. A flash of green light erupted from it, and a half-foot-long blade chi extended from the tip. Bong! The low-grade artifact, the turtle shell, was split in two. Immortal Master Li was horrified. A mere post-celestial martial artist had shattered his artifact. He threw himself to the side, but it was too late. Squish!
The sound of a blade entering flesh.
His left arm was severed at the shoulder, and blood gushed out. Ignoring the pain, Immortal Master Li rolled on the ground, escaping the blade's range. He flicked his right sleeve and a long black nail shot out, aimed at your vital points, a one-time use artifact, the 7 soul-scattering nail. You had been about to pursue but were forced to draw back your blade to defend. You switched your technique to amass strike, your long blade dancing from top to bottom, creating a screen of light.
Clang, clang, clang.
A series of explosions. 5 of the soul-scattering nails were knocked away, but 2 broke through your defense, heading for your chest. Immortal Master Li's face lit up with glee. His 7 soul-scattering nail was incredibly venomous and fast. Once it drew blood, it would immediately corrode the soul. Not even a god could save the victim. However, he only heard 2 crisp metallic clinks. The nails fell to the ground. An unknown dark gold inner armor had appeared on your body, and your skin had turned a coppery red. The nails had pierced the inner armor but were stopped by your incredibly tough skin. Immortal Master Li was aghast. This fake Song Lin had not only condensed blade chi but also possessed a powerful body-hardening technique. Was this really a post-celestial martial artist? He had no time to think. You flicked your hand, and several iron Bodhi seeds shot out with a piercing whistle, aimed at his major acupoints. Immortal Master Li gritted his teeth, and a golden talisman appeared in his hand. It flared with golden light, forming a golden shield in front of him.
A mid-grade spirit talisman, the Vajra talisman.
The Bodhi seeds hit the shield and were immediately deflected. You advanced, your 7 fiends blade once again ninjir a half-foot of blade chi, and you hacked at the Vajra shield repeatedly.
A série of explosions rang out.
The shield deformed and twisted but held firm.
Immortal Master Li sneered.
The Vajra talisman is a mid-grade spirit talisman. Even a celestial rank martial artist can't break it easily. By the time this guy breaks through, I'll have enough time to cast a spell and kill him 100 times over. He took out a pill to stop the bleeding from his severed arm, then reluctantly pulled out a dark purple spirit talisman. It shimmered with a faint glow, clearly of high quality. A Tungning Guilan was drawn on it. Immortal Master Li began to chant, his remaining right hand forming seals. Though he was one-armed and the chanting was a bit halting, the purple talisman began to glow. The purple light intensified, and the skull on it became more and more lifelike, almost as if it would leap off the talisman. You were greatly alarmed. You absolutely could not let him finish casting that spell. Thinking of this, you took a deep breath. First, you slapped several blood talismans and sharp gold armor-piercing talismans onto your blade. Then, you stuck 5 divine strength talismans onto yourself. These were the highest quality ones you could make, each increasing strength by 30%. Though stacking them had diminishing returns, it would still double your power. In the Vajra shield, Immortal Master Li saw this and his eyelids twitched. He started chanting faster. Just then, you let out a great roar, your body enveloped in a layer of blood-red light as your aura exploded.
Blood vient une rotation, seconde rotation. Your strand doubled again.
Taking a deep breath, your long blade hummed, all your essence, energy, and spirit focused into it. With this blade in my hand, I will cut down all powerful enemies. With this blade, even ghosts and gods will tremble.
Soul Séverine Bladint.
All your vitality and strength were now concentrated in the 7 fiends' blade. It let out a clear, ringing cry.
The next moment, a bright, blood-red blade light flashed.
The long blade was like a bolt of lightning. The Vajra shield shattered with a boom. Immortal Master Li's head flew high into the air, blood spurting from his neck. He never dreamed that his enemy had so many trump cards, 2 types of divine talismans, the Blood Fiend 9 rotations, and Blade Intent. A 9th-grade martial artist had actually shattered a Vajra shield. Immortal Master Li's head fell to the ground, his eyes closed. You casually flicked an iron Bodhi seed towards his forehead. Rule number 4 of being a cautious dog, always remember to secure the kill. Just then, Immortal Master Li's head suddenly opened its eyes and spat out a jet of black blood. The blood jet hit the iron Bodhi seed, instantly corroding it into a puff of green smoke. You were startled and quickly dodged aside. You hadn't expected your subconscious kill-securing move to save your life. Immortal Master Li's head was so angry its 7 orifices were smoking. He had cultivated a flying head secret art, allowing him to survive temporarily even after being decapitated. He had just mustered all his strength to spit out a mouthful of poison soul blood sword to kill you, but he never expected this kid to be so cautious as to use a hidden weapon on a decapitated head. Too damn cautious. A burst of blood-red light erupted from Immortal Master Li's head, and it shot towards the forest. As long as he could find a suitable body to possess, he could recover. You were shocked and used your ape climbs the clouds technique to its limit, giving chase. But the head was too fast, and the distance between you grew.
Kid, il est vraiment you.
When I've rebuilt my cultivation, you'll know what it means to regret offending an immortal. I'll exterminate your 9 generations and make you live in fear day and night. The head shrieked as it disappeared into the woods. Just as it was about to escape, a black dog leaped out of the forest and slapped the head to the ground with one paw. It was Lao Mo. You quickly caught up, threw your blade, and pierced the head through. You then threw a few more iron Bodhi seeds, smashing the head like a watermelon. You expertly pulled out a fiend-gathering talisman, a soul-extinguishing talisman, and a spirit-cleansing blood talisman. The funeral trifecta performed the whole procedure, seeing Immortal Master Li off properly. Finally, the rebel immortal was slain.
You let out à l'ombris, a sense of unreality washing over you.
But you quickly adjusted your mindset. Next, it's time to conduct a funeral for an immortal. You first looted the body, taking everything of value. You even stripped off his clothes. Once you were sure there were no more hidden treasures, you began to dig a pit with your own hands, buried him, filled the earth, and then took out your long-unused swona and began to play. Great calamities, the noble sigh, the lowly submit. Death is the most impartial thing. The noble die and find peace, the wicked die and receive their due. Whether god or immortal, hero or commoner, in death, all are but a pile of yellow earth.
Dust to dust, earth to earth, from the yellow springs there is no return.
After a few tunes, you looked at the path of the burial master.
Funeral target, Li Wuchan.
Identity, Blood Fiend Demon Sect Disciple, Red Lotus Sect Sponsored Immortal Master. Cultivation, 7th Level Chi Refining, 3rd Rank Feng Shui Master. Basic Rewards, Fire Attribute Spirit Root +3, Life Experience +250,000. Optional Rewards, Red Flame Desolate Tomb Art, Blood Fiend Great Law, Art of Rearing Ghouls, 5 Ghosts Banner Crafting Method, Black Goat Pill Formula, Flying Head Art, Feng Shui Experience.
Funeral Participation, 88%.
You were overjoyed. You finally had a spirit root. Even if it was only 3 points, for an immortal like you, having a spirit root was all that mattered. The life experience reward was also incredibly generous, a full 250,000. It was a massive windfall. As for the optional rewards, there were cultivation manuals, corpse refining methods, and artifact crafting techniques. Each one was tempting, but you could only choose one. You looked at the 88% participation rate. Just a little more and it would exceed 90%, allowing you to choose 2 rewards. The higher you went, the harder it was to increase participation. You thought for a moment, played another lament, picked some fruits as offerings, and lit some branches and a book as incense and paper horses. You even pretended to cry for a bit. Finally, the participation rate reached 90.5%. A happy smile spread across your face as you began to claim your rewards. Funeral successful. Basic rewards claimed, Fire Attribute Spirit Root +3, Life Experience +250,000. You shuddered as a warm current flowed through your body. In a trance, you seemed to perceive a different world. It was as if a water-misted glass had been wiped clean. You could vaguely sense a faint energy in the air, scorching and explosive. Perhaps that was Fire Attribute Spirit Chi. You beamed. You finally had a spirit root. You could become a cultivator. You then examined the optional rewards. After some thought, you chose the Art of Rearing Ghouls. If you could raise a few silver-armored flying corpses or a gold-armored corpse king, it would be a huge asset. After all that, you finally looked at the loot from Immortal Master Li's body. A strange storage pouch that you couldn't open yet, a high-quality purple spirit talisman, a bottle of strange blood-red pills with a pungent smell, and a strangely textured token carved with a blood-red lotus. Lastly, there was a golden silkworm thread vest that could block sharp weapons. You put on the vest and stored the rest. Once you cultivated some spirit power, you could see what was in the storage pouch. Next, it's time to finish off the rebel army. You whispered a few words to Lao Mo, and man and dog went their separate ways. Soon, your face transformed into that of a ruffian. After that, you headed towards the battlefield. By now, the rebel army was showing signs of collapse. Seeing the situation was hopeless, the rebel leaders cut their losses, leaving the common soldiers to block the pursuers while the corps members fled with a light escort towards Changshu County in the north. A few hundred people fled rapidly. Just then, a person came running frantically from the north. You ran up to the group, panting for breath. The Grand Marshal, Song Bailey, rushed forward and grabbed your hand. What happened? Tell us quickly. It's
Liu Dulon.
He was the mole. He broke the feng shui formation and let the imperial army into the city. The whole of Changshu County has fallen. The strategist is missing. I disguised myself as a common soldier and escaped to report. The Red Lotus saintly son, Xiao Bushi, roared, Lu Julong. I knew it was him. I said long ago that none of the Black Wolf Gang's leaders should be trusted, but the strategist wouldn't listen. Grand Marshal Song Bailey's face was grim. So that means our previous defeat was also because of Lu Julong's betrayal. He hid it so well, fooling all of us. He made a decisive call.
We can't go north.
Flee into the mountains. The group chaotically ran into the forest. You followed them, a cold smile on your face. With me here, I'll make sure your journey is smooth. After fleeing for a while, the pursuers caught up again. The group had to split up and run. After a few more rounds of this, only you, Song Lin, and Grand Marshal Song Bailey were left, running to a valley. All three of you were panting heavily. Song Lin pulled you aside. Old Lu, I feel like something's wrong. How do the pursuers find us no matter where we run? You glanced at him. It is a bit strange. Song Lin continued, I suspect there's a mole among us. Now there are only 3 of us. I think.
It's my grandfather.
You were stunned. Good heavens, Song Lin suspected his own grandfather, Grand Marshal Song Bailey, was the mole. You quickly said, that's absurd.
Absolutely impossible.
Maybe the enemy cultivators have some special tracking method. He now treated you almost like a brother in life and death, willing to suspect his own grandfather before you. You couldn't imagine his expression if you said, sorry, I'm the mole. Look, who's that? You pointed behind Song Lin. Song Lin turned to look. Suddenly, his vision went black, and he collapsed. You thought for a moment and decided not to kill Song Lin. To be fair, he was a decent friend and superior. You hid him in a tree hollow and left. On your way, you opened your pack and changed into a mask and night-crawling clothes. The familiar feeling returned. You sped towards a nearby battlefield. In the forest, Song Bailey was like a fierce tiger, wielding his long blade and charging left and right. He was a 9th-grade martial artist. When he fought desperately, even the dragon snake head constable dared not face him directly, only able to wear him down with his men.
Oui, a roar like a tiger. Song Bailey broke tous encirclement.
He was as fast as the wind, and with a few leaps, he was about to disappear into the jungle. Even the crossbow bolts fired by the constables couldn't catch him. The head constable was frantic. The duck in his hand was about to fly away. But just then, a figure shot out, a blade flashing, striking at Song Bailey. Get lost. Song Bailey roared, his internal energy surging as he met the blade with his own. Clang.
A metallic clash.
Song Bailey's long blade broke, and a head rolled to the ground. You swiftly snatched a few items from Song Bailey's robes, grabbed the head, and left. Which expert is that? May I have your name? The head constable shouted. You didn't look back shouting, the killer is Kai Kun. The head constable and his men looked at each other, perplexed.
Kekun.
Who's that? There's no such expert in all of Jiangqing. By then, you were long gone. Over the next few days, you killed several more high-ranking rebels in the mountains before finally starting your journey home. The story continues with Bai Yu returning to Jiangqing, reporting his success at his master's grave, and settling the karmic debt. He then spends 30 years in the capital of the Li Kingdom, raising his master's son, practicing cultivation, and running his business, before finally returning to his hometowns to close out the final chapters of his mortal life and fully embark on his immortal journey.
Final scène.
The 100,000 mountains in the southeast of the Li Kingdom, a vast and boundless expanse. In the Green Mountains, a young man in white clothes moved swiftly through the forest. He carried a long blade on his back, a swona tucked into his belt, and was followed by a black dog. This was Bai Yu, restored to his original appearance, and Lao Mo.
Done we the mortal world, now we walk the immortal path.
He was now a great cultivator at the 3rd level of Qi refining. It was time to see the splendors of the immortal journey. Lao Mo, let's go find some immortals. Woof woof. Find immortals, find immortals. I want to be an immortal too. At this time, Bai Yu had 2 divine movement talismans on his feet, allowing him to travel as fast as a 1,000 li horse even without using lightness kung fu. These talismans were, of course, from the rebel immortal Master Li's storage pouch. This time, he was heading deep into the 100,000 mountains to find a place called Flying Immortal Valley. During his 30 years in the capital, he hadn't been idle. He had collected a great deal of information about the immortal path. Although the path was mysterious, it always left traces in the mortal world. Southeast of Jiangzhou, there was a Flying Immortal Valley, rumored to be a gathering place for immortals. After traveling through the mountains for over a month, Bai Yu finally reached the depths of the 100,000 mountains, which opened up into a wide plain. He could clearly feel the spiritual qi in the air growing denser. The beasts in the forest were more ferocious, and occasionally, a streak of red light would flash across the sky, clearly a cultivator passing by.
He must be close to Flying Immortal Valley.
He and Lao Mo sat on a large rock, each eating a roasted rabbit, cooked to a perfect crispness and seasoned deliciously. Lao Mo was drooling. Suddenly, he let out a low growl, crouching low to the ground. Bai Yu silently drew his seven fiends blade.
Just then, a young man came striding over.
He wore brocade robes, a white jade pendant at his waist, and had a look of pure unadulterated foolishness in his clear eyes. Seeing Bai Yu, he shouted excitedly, "Great! I finally ran into a fellow Taoist. I was getting so bored with no one to talk to." He walked over without any guard, cupping his hands in a salute. "Fellow Taoist, are you also heading to the Songyan market?"
Songyan market? Not flying immortal valet?
Bai Yu was confused but showed no sign of it, nodding non-committally. The young man in brocade was thrilled. "That's great. We can travel together. We can buy some things at Songyan market. In a few months, it'll be the once every 5 years flying immortal assembly." This guy was a chatterbox, not even waiting for Bai Yu to reply before launching into a monologue. "Fellow Taoist, my name is Wan Xiaofeng, from the Wan family of Greenwood Ridge, a small cultivator family. Seeing you, you must also be from a small family. May I know your name?" "My name is Kai Kuan," Bai Yu said calmly. Wan Xiaofeng looked enlightened. "Ah, must be the Kai family of Taiping Island. We're quite similar then."
Bai Yu gave a non-committal smile.
Wan Xiaofeng then looked at the roasted rabbit in Bai Yu's hand and rubbed his head embarrassedly. "Brother Kuan, what are you eating?"
Bai Yu was amused.
This guy was really forward. Was he just trying to freeload? He tore off a rabbit leg and gave it to Wan Xiaofeng. Wan Xiaofeng took it without ceremony and started eating, not at all worried that Bai Yu might have poisoned it. Bai Yu shook his head inwardly. If it were him, he would never eat a stranger's food so casually. This Wan Xiaofeng was either genuinely naive and foolish, raised sheltered in his clan, or... After eating the rabbit, Wan Xiaofeng even excitedly asked to learn Bai Yu's roasting technique. Bai Yu laughed and gave a few pointers, then steered the conversation to cultivation. "Brother Wan, I've always been in secluded cultivation in my clan and don't know much about the cultivation world. Could you tell me about it?" Wan Xiaofeng was instantly thrilled, as if he'd finally found a chance to show off. He cleared his throat. "Ahem. Brother Kuan, you've asked the right person.
Wan Xiaofeng, I am known à monsieur. Know it all."
In our greatly kingdom, the cultivation world has several major powers, the 6 sects, 1 city, and 3 great families. The 6 sects are the Tai Sword sect, the Su Nu sect, the Myriad Pill Pavilion, the Tiangong sect, the Leong sect, and the Great Chan Temple. The 1 city refers to Biluo City, deep in the 100,000 mountains, a super city founded by the reclusive ancestor Biluo. The 3 great families are the Lin, Gongshu, and Murong families. Wan Xiaofeng spoke with spittle flying, and Bai Yu listened with great interest. "Then this Songyan market we're going to, which power does it belong to?" Wan Xiaofeng snapped his fingers, getting excited. "You asked the right person again. Songyan market was originally a valley where the major sects recruited disciples. Because of the Flying Immortal Assembly, it was called Flying Immortal Valley. Later, many rogue cultivators gathered there, and it spontaneously formed a small market. It's managed by people sent from Biluo City." As he grew more excited, he gestured wildly, the jade pendant on his waist clinking. The 2 of them, plus the dog, walked and talked, with Wan Xiaofeng doing most of the talking and Bai Yu listening. Half a day later, they passed through a gorge with very steep sides. Bai Yu asked with a smile, "Brother Wan, what do you usually like to do?"
Wan Xiaofeng's eyes lit up.
"Oh, I like lots of things. I like delicious food, listening to strange stories, and traveling. But my family elders don't let me do any of that. Brother Kuan, what are your hobbies?" Bai Yu chuckled. "I like to conduct funerals for people. Brother Wan, if you ever meet with misfortune, I can find a good feng shui spot for you."
Base one-stop service.
Wan Xiaofeng was taken aback for a moment, then burst out laughing. "Haha, Brother Kuan, your hobby is really interesting. When I die, I'll definitely ask you to find me a good place and send me off." Bai Yu suddenly said, "I think this place is pretty good. It's a nice place to be buried." Before his words faded, Bai Yu ferociously drew his blade. A rainbow of light flashed as he slashed down, the blade whistling through the air like a howling wolf. Wan Xiaofeng's face changed dramatically. A layer of blue light emerged from his jade pendant, forming a barrier in front of him.
"Brother Kuan, you." The blade struck, the light barrier shattered, and a head flew into the sky, blood fountaining.
Wan Xiaofeng's eyes were wide with disbelief. Bai Yu didn't stop, stabbing his blade through Wan Xiaofeng's heart. He pulled out the blade and looked towards the front of the gorge. "Come out." The gorge was silent and empty. "Do I have to come and invite you out?" Bai Yu said calmly. Just then, a burly man with a fierce face stood up from a large boulder. He wore earth-yellow clothes that blended perfectly with the rock, making him impossible to spot with the naked eye. He looked somewhat similar to Wan Xiaofeng. The burly man's eyes were full of malice.
"Kid, my heart conseil art, quand id mai aura en merge me with rock and swal." How did you see through my disguise?
Bai Yu just smiled faintly, not answering. In truth, he hadn't spotted the man at all. He was just bluffing, and it had worked. From the very beginning, he had been extremely wary of Wan Xiaofeng. The four great taboos of the martial world: monks, Taoists, women and children. Especially women and children. They looked weak, which made people lower their guard, making it easy to be ambushed. Wan Xiaofeng was the same. He looked naive, clear-eyed, and foolish. The more he was like that, the more dangerous he was. So Bai Yu had been on high alert the whole time. Wan Xiaofeng had hidden it well, his words and expressions had no flaws. But just before the gorge, he had revealed a sliver of killing intent. To a cultivator, this might have been hard to detect. But Bai Yu was a celestial rank martial artist who had undergone a divine transformation, making his six senses extremely sharp, especially to killing intent. Furthermore, he was a third-rank feng shui master, his soul tempered by earth qi, making it stronger than an ordinary person's. Wan Xiaofeng's sliver of killing intent was immediately caught by Bai Yu. The long narrow gorge was indeed a perfect place for an ambush. So Bai Yu had acted first, without a word. Of course, Bai Yu wouldn't explain all this to his enemy. He tightened his grip on his long blade, his eyes filled with killing intent. The burly man opposite him snorted.
Kid, you'd arrête tout kill my brother.
I'll search your soul and refine your spirit. I advise you to surrender now and suffer less. I have a suggestion too, Bai Yu said calmly.
Why don't you kill yourself right now? He promised to give you a proper funeral.
The burly man's eyes flashed with ferocity. He slapped a green talisman on himself, and vines instantly grew, forming a green protective barrier. Then, he raised his hand and shot 3 fireballs at Bai Yu. Bai Yu's long blade slashed out, sending several Zhonglong blade chi arcs, which faintly howled like wolves.
Bang, bang, bang.
The 3 fireballs were shattered by the blade chi. Just then, the burly man summoned a crimson flying dagger and sent it flying at Bai Yu's head. The dagger was incredibly fast, reaching him in an instant. Bai Yu swung his blade repeatedly, executing 10/soul sever, a flurry of 10 cuts. A series of metallic clashes rang out, and the crimson dagger was knocked back. But it flipped in the air and came at his head again. Bai Yu swung his blade continuously to defend, the blade chi flying. But his 7 fiends' blade began to show tiny nicks. Even a divine weapon was no match for a cultivator's artifact. Bai Yu was forced to use his Tianlang Sky Wolf True Chi, condensing it into claws to strike out, coordinating with his blade chi to fend off the crimson dagger. The burly man on the other side sneered. Kid, your little tricks are useless against my flying dagger. Let's see how long you can last. He had another spirit talisman in his hand, ready to finish Bai Yu off. It glowed with spiritual light, forming a silver snake, which looked very menacing. Just then, Bai Yu suddenly showed a faint smile. He stomped his foot, and the surrounding earth chi rapidly gathered. A large crack opened up under the burly man's feet, and he began to fall. The man was shocked and had to abandon his protective talisman, instead trying to use a levitation technique to fly up. At that moment, Bai Yu roared and threw his long blade. The 7 fiends' blade hummed and turned into a streak of clear light, aiming for the man's heart. The burly man gritted his teeth and leaped up with all his might, simultaneously pushing his crimson dagger to its limit to kill Bai Yu. The next moment, a sharp pain shot through his legs. His jump hadn't completely dodged the 7 fiends' blade, both his legs were severed at the root. But he felt a sense of relief. Damn, that was a close call. Trading my legs for that kid's life is worth it. He looked towards Bai Yu, and then his vision went black, and he nearly fainted from rage. A Vajra shield had appeared around Bai Yu, and the crimson dagger's full power strike had been completely blocked by it. The burly man was so angry he almost started cursing. You son of a bitch, if you had a Vajra talisman, why didn't you use it earlier? His body fell towards the crack below. Bai Yu stomped again, and the crack closed, trapping the burly man. As he was about to struggle, 2 flying daggers flashed, and his arms were also severed. Bai Yu took out a repeating crossbow and aimed it at the man. Speak.
Who are you?
The man looked at the blue-tipped arrows and felt a chill. He stopped struggling. With his hands and feet gone, he couldn't even activate a talisman. There was no way he could block that poisoned crossbow. He swallowed.
If he talk, quand il arrive.
Bai Yu sneered.
What do you think? If you talk, you'll suffer less.
Otherwise, I'll search your soul and refine your spirit.
The burly man sighed.
He told Bai Yu everything. His name was Chen Yuxing, and the other was Chen Yuxian. They were brothers, the infamous Wuxing soundless double killers. They specialized in preying on newcomers to flying Immortal Valley. At least 100, if not 80 newcomers had died at their hands. Wan Xiaofeng, Chen Yuxian, would use his harmless naive image to lure people to remote places, and then the brothers would kill them and take their belongings. His acting was superb. He would even take the initiative to eat others' food. Most newcomers to the immortal path couldn't see through his disguise. Plus, they only targeted those with low cultivation levels, so they had never failed until they met Bai Yu, This freak who was a dual expert in martial arts and feng shui despite only being at the third level of qi refining. Chen Yusheng looked at Bai Yu pleadingly. I've told you everything. What are you going to do with me? I ask you answer, Bai Yu said to the man. If you talk, I can choose a good place to bury you. Do you want to be chopped into pieces and fed to the dogs, or be buried in the earth?
The man's jaw trembled.
He sighed. You have other questions, just ask. Being buried is better than being fed to the dogs. Bai Yu asked a few more questions about the cultivation world, like the location of Songyun Market and the time of the Flying Immortal Assembly. The answers were mostly consistent with what Wan Xiaofeng had said. Suddenly, the man said, Fellow Taoist, we have a treasure stash.
If he tell you, quand il arrive.
For robbers like them, they definitely wouldn't carry everything on them. Seeing their methods, they must have robbed many people. When he saw Bai Yu's interest, the man pressed on.
Allons à Yulet Mai sous l'escape fort possession, il tell you where the treasure is.
It has all our loot from the past few years.
You'll get rich overnight. Sparme, and il tell you.
His voice was very low, as if afraid a third person might hear. Bai Yu sneered. Still trying to play tricks at a time like this?
You recourting des.
He stomped his foot, and the earth chi surged. The ground rippled like a wave, crushing towards the man. The man was shocked, gritted his teeth, and his whole body exploded. Boom. Blood and flesh flew, and the shockwave rushed towards Bai Yu. Fortunately, Bai Yu was far enough away, and the Vajra shield blocked it. Just then, a crimson ball of light shot out from the bloody dust, passed through the Vajra shield, and aimed for Bai Yu's forehead. Bai Yu snorted and slapped out with his palm. His Tianlang Tru Chi condensed into a sharp claw and smashed the crimson ball to pieces. The man had just mentioned a treasure cave and deliberately lowered his voice. If Bai Yu had been blinded by greed and gone closer to listen, he would have been possessed. But Bai Yu had remained calm and seeing something was wrong, acted immediately. Of all the places to pick a fight, you had to choose one with dense earth chi. Though Bai Yu had one, this incident was a warning. The immortal path was perilous, not at all like the peaceful blue star of his previous life. In this world that followed the law of the jungle, you could never be too careful. He was lucky he hadn't rushed into the immortal path, but had instead accumulated strength in the mortal world for decades. If he were really just a third-level chi refining cultivator, he would have died 1,000 times over by now. Bai Yu said to Lao Mo, see that? Without enough strength to handle danger, you must never rashly enter an unknown domain. Lao Mo took out his little notebook and quickly jotted down a note. Doggy's rule, must have strength before entering a new domain. Be cautious. Bai Yu chuckled and began to clean up the battlefield. He found 2 storage pouches on the enemies, containing 30-odd spirit stones, a wood attribute cultivation manual Qingsongju, a few talismans, and 2 artifacts. What Bai Yu valued most was a silver snake talisman, and the burly man's crimson flying dagger. The silver snake talisman, like the Vajra talisman, was a Xian rank mid-grade talisman. Cultivation talismans started at Xian rank low-grade, whereas the blood talismans like the corpse-controlling talisman were Huang rank. He couldn't keep the storage pouches. If the 2 had accomplices who had marked the pouches, Bai Yu would be exposed. He destroyed them and put the rest of the items in his own pouch. He then quickly conducted funerals for the 2 enemies, digging 2 pits and burying them. Even though the burly man was in pieces, it still counted as a funeral.
Point funeral target, Chen Yusheng. Identity, Wusheng double killer.
Cultivation, 5th level Qi refining. Basic rewards, Fire Attribute Spirit Root +2, Life Experience plus 10,248. Optional rewards, Shiyan Ju, Fireball Art, Strength plus 24, Levitation Art, Object Manipulation Art.
Funeral participation, 38%. The reward made by USI's light up.
Spirit Roots, Cultivation Manuals, spells. These were all things he desperately needed. He first used a soul-extinguishing talisman to see them off properly, then played his Swona and lit incense. After a series of actions, he finally raised the participation rate above 50%. Funeral of Chen Yusheng successful.
Funeral participation, 52%.
An additional reward can be selected. The rewards from cultivators were indeed generous. A 5th level Qi refining cultivator yielded a lot of life experience.
Bai Yu took for a moment and chose the Fireball.
He currently had cultivation but no offensive spells. With the Fireball Art, he would have more combat capability. Plus, his own cultivation manual was Fire Attribute, making the Fireball Art a natural fit. After all that, Bai Yu and Lao Mo quickly left the scene. He ran for over 100 li before finding a cave to hide in. He didn't plan to enter Flying Immortal Valley until he had mastered the Fireball Art and Levitation Art. He first checked the memories of the Wuxing double killers and found a lot of useful information, such as the location of their treasure stash. But he didn't rush to go there. He settled down and began to practice the Fireball Art. Finally, I'm going to learn a real immortal spell. He formed hand seals, chanted, and the spiritual power in his body flowed along a specific path towards his palm. His fingers curved slightly, and his palm began to heat up. A small crimson flame appeared above his hand. He was overjoyed. The fireball art was about to succeed. Suddenly, the flow of spiritual power was interrupted, and the flame went out. Bai Yu reflected. Being able to form a flame meant the casting process was correct. He just lacked control over his spiritual power. A few more days of practice, and he would surely succeed. In the following days, Bai Yu continuously practiced the fireball art, improving each time. Lao Mo, watching, found it fun and also wanted to learn. Bai Yu didn't hide it, teaching both the fireball art and levitation art to Lao Mo. He had taught him the Qian Ju before, and it seemed Lao Mo could really cultivate, though his progress was hard to judge. A few days later, in a clearing, Bai Yu once again formed hand seals and chanted. A crimson flame slowly appeared above his palm, gathering and condensing into a thumb-sized fireball. Go! The small fireball shot out and burned a bush 10 zhang away to ashes. Bai Yu let out a long breath, feeling great. After much hard practice, he had finally succeeded. The difficulty of immortal spells was much greater than martial arts. It's only because of my heaven-defying talent, stunning looks, and dashing demeanor that I could succeed in just 10 days. Just then, Lao Mo let out a howl. A fist-sized fireball began to form in his mouth. It shot out and hit a large rock. Boom!
The rock shattered, leaving a base incisée d'all, the edge red hot and molten.
Woof woof. Lao Mo looked proud. Bai Yu turned to look at Lao Mo, dumbfounded. The fireball art he had just learned suddenly didn't seem so impressive anymore. Damn it! My talent is unparalleled in all of history, yet someone can surpass me. Who is this divine being? Lao Mo had an expression of a lonely master. Woof woof.
Yeah. I am the Black Emperor. Tremble, mortal.
Bai Yu was shocked. This child is terrifyingly talented. I cannot let him live. Watch me silence this dog. He pounced on Lao Mo, and man and dog wrestled on the ground. Only when Lao Mo agreed to give up all his food for the week did Bai Yu let him go. Still, Bai Yu was a bit indignant. Why is my cultivation talent so bad? Add points. Add points for me. He unceremoniously dumped a ton of life experience into the fireball art. Instantly, it went from first glimpse to proficient, then mastered, and finally minor accomplishment. This cost him over 100,000 life experience. Immortal spells consumed 10 times more experience than mortal martial arts. But Bai Yu wasn't worried. He had saved up all his experience from the past 30 years for this day. In contrast, his martial arts progress over those 30 years had been slow and steady, not the rapid leaps of before. Now that the fireball art had reached minor accomplishment, Bai Yu once again formed hand seals and chanted. This time, all his spiritual power rushed to his right hand. A moment later, a basin-sized fireball appeared above his palm. It shot out and hit a large rock, blowing it to pieces. Bai Yu himself was shocked by the power. He was overjoyed. My great success with the fireball art is all due to my own diligent efforts.
And a little help from the pass of the burial master.
But soon, he felt a wave of emptiness, as if his body had been drained. This one fireball had consumed almost half of his spiritual power. Looks like I still need more practice. The story continues with Bai Yu mastering his new skills, then entering the Songyun market. He sets up a stall selling talismans and cleverly crafted relics like Buddha's Saraira, made from animal bones, and lightning-struck wood to earn spirit stones. He befriends a couple, Lu Hongmei and Zhang Tinglu, who also run a stall. He uses his earnings to buy more cultivation manuals and a defensive formation for his cave. The once every 5 years flying immortal assembly begins, a grand event where rogue cultivators compete for a chance to enter a major sect. The once every 5 years flying immortal assembly arrived on schedule. Cultivators from all over flocked to the valley, and the number of people in Songyun market increased more than tenfold. The variety of items they brought was dazzling. For example, Bai Yu and a group of people were gathered around a stall where the owner had summoned 2 puppets that looked 80% human. My mechanical puppets may only have the combat power of a first or second level qi refining cultivator, the owner explained, but they are made to human proportions and look almost identical. They are perfect for handling various chores. The 2 puppets were female, with beautiful features and slender figures. 4 single male cultivators. They were indeed very convenient. Many people in the crowd started bidding, not for any other reason than their love for mechanical arts and learning. Bai Yu didn't bid. Unless they were in large numbers, these things weren't very practical. He and Lao Mo wandered around, their eyes wide with wonder. All sorts of artifacts, pills, spirit beasts, and materials were on display. Even formations, which were usually rare, appeared. Bai Yu stopped at a formation stall, his eyes on an 8 trigrams cloudlight formation. This formation, arranged according to the 8 trigrams, was said to be able to defend against the simultaneous attacks of several high-level qi refining cultivators. But the price was steep, a full 500 spirit stones. Bai Yu was very tempted. With the approaching assembly, along with the crowds came risks. He had heard that several stall owners had mysteriously disappeared. Gritting his teeth, Bai Yu went up to the stall owner. Fellow Taoist, how much for this formation? The owner was an old Taoist with a snow-white beard, looking like a transcendent immortal. He was a man of few words. 500.
Bai Shuki said.
Fellow Taoist, your formation is good, but that's too expensive. One might think it's a sect's mountain-protecting formation. Besides, with the flying immortal assembly here, everyone wants to buy artifacts and talismans that can quickly increase their strength. How many people want to buy your formation? The old Taoist's eyebrows twitched. Baiyu had hit the nail on the head. Many had asked about the formation, but few wanted to buy. Most had spent their spirit stones preparing for the assembly. In the end, with his masterful haggling skills, Baiyu managed to bring the price down to 300 spirit stones. He gritted his teeth, pretending his entire fortune was being wiped out, and bought the formation set. With a grand formation protecting his cave, he would have more security. Satisfied, Baiyu squeezed through the crowd, made sure no one was following him, and then returned to his cave to set up the 8 trigrams cloud light formation. A few days later, the flying immortal assembly officially began. The central square of Songyan Market was packed. Suddenly, several streaks of dazzling light descended from the sky, landing on the central high platform. They were 7 cultivators dressed in different attire. The pressure they exuded was immense. They were all foundation establishment experts. A middle-aged Taoist in a water-and-fire Taoist robe stepped forward. His cold gaze swept over the crowd, and the square instantly fell silent. This year's Flying Immortal Assembly now officially begins, the Taoist announced. The rules for entry will now be announced by me. Any cultivator wishing to enter our sects may go up to the Flying Immortal platform to compete. The top 100 will gain entry. In reality, the major sects didn't care much about the Flying Immortal Assembly. They had their own recruitment channels. The participants here were mostly rogue cultivators, who were inherently less trusted than disciples nurtured by the sects themselves. Holding the assembly every 5 years was just a way to give rogue cultivators a chance to rise, to prevent them from becoming discontented and causing trouble. Out of the thousands of rogue cultivators here, only 100 spots were available. After the middle-aged Taoist spoke, a fat-headed monk added, "Swords and blades have no eyes.
Ons on the flying immortal platform, life and death are your own effateux.
If you feel your strength is insufficient, do not go up lightly. After this grand competition, our 7 sects will have smaller tests. If any of you have powerful spirit roots, special physiques, or unique skill, such as being a ranked alchemist, you may come to our respective testing stations." Baiyu's heart stirred. So there was a second round of tests. It made sense. If someone had a heavenly spirit root, what was the point of competing in cultivation level? The sects would definitely fight to recruit them. This gave him an opportunity. To participate in the main competition, you needed to be at least at the 7th level of chi refining, and it was extremely dangerous. Only the 9th level was considered safe. With Baiyu's heaven-defying talent, reaching the 9th level would probably take decades, if not a century. But if he participated in the second round of tests, it was a different story. If he could become a first-ranked talisman master, he had a good chance of passing. If he could become a second-ranked master, it was practically guaranteed. Baiyu made up his mind, setting his future path. Just then, many cultivators went up to register for the competition. Most of them were late-stage chi refining experts. Lu Hongmei's husband, Zhang Tinglu, also went up to register. Baiyu watched the surging crowd of cultivators on the stage and couldn't help but feel nervous for Zhang Tinglu. The next day, the Flying Immortal Assembly officially began. The 7 platforms in the central square started their competitions simultaneously. Pairs of late-stage chi refining experts began to fight. The crowd below was huge, cheering loudly. Baiyu didn't join them. He was at the back of the crowd, having set up a specially made A-frame ladder.